markets. Now, after that, of course, analysis of what Bank of Uganda said in response to the article. We now look at the treasury bonds and bills themselves. How can you be part of this action? And we're going to just go through a few steps, a few things you might need to know for you to be an investor in the debt instruments. Number one, we have two kinds of investors, the competitive investors and the non-competitive investors. Why we have these two categories is because the rates at which these instruments are issued are determined by the investors, and in particular, these are the competitive investors. And for competitive investors, for you to qualify to be a competitive investor or a competitive bidder, you have to have a bid that exceeds 200 million shillings. And remember, the bills and bonds are broken down into units of 100,000. So you must have at least 2,100,000 Ugandan shillings in order for you to become a competitive investor. On the other hand, the non-competitive investors are those that really have below or at exactly 200 million shillings and below. And so these are investors who take the rate that is, of course, agreed upon by the Bank of Uganda after the bids from the competitive investors. Now, all bids, however, the competitive and non-competitive must be submitted through a commercial bank into, for example, who also appoints a primary dealer, and this primary dealer is also a bank licensed by the Bank of Uganda. The primary dealers are well-capitalized financial institutions that have the undertaking of the central bank to facilitate open market operations, as well as be the conduit for the market making. There are 8 primary dealers, and we have DFCU Bank, Centenary Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, Housing Finance Bank, United Bank of Africa. We have Bank of Baroda, Absa Bank, and DFCU or Standard Chartered as well. These are all actually the banks that are into the primary dealership. And this primary dealer is the one who actually approaches the Bank of Uganda or goes for the auctioning of these instruments. So if it is a bank and it's not under this category of the banks that are in the primary dealership, they have to appoint a primary dealer. So the quickest way for you to get access is actually to visit your commercial bank. You must have a bank account for you to, first of all, get to invest in these. And when you approach your banker, you can ask them about the instruments, you can ask about the treasury bills and bonds, and ask them about how you can participate if you have what it takes. They'll give you forms, of course, and a few other things for you to be able to fill and open an account, but that really is still a quite seamless process. Now, the bids are captured on the Central Securities Depository by the commercial banks for themselves and for their clients, and the auction is carried out at the Bank of Uganda. The comprehensive and thorough verification of the captured bids is done before any results are approved for the auctions. Now, the diarization is done on the real-time gross system that is the RTGS system for the next day's automatic settlement for the securities at exactly 12 p.m. And the settlement is done at a T+1 settlement arrangement, and all successful bids are settled by directly debiting the primary dealer or the commercial bank at the central bank for the value of the cost of securities of the investments through a particular primary dealer or a commercial bank. Now, the securities are automatically created on the Central Securities Depository after settlement through the real-time gross system or the RTGS at exactly 12 o'clock on the settlement day. And of course, Bank of Uganda issues electronic securities, and they are stored electronically, so they will not have to give you a piece of paper where you will have to say, okay, this is my bond, this is my bill. No, it's entirely an electronic process at the moment. Now, these are some of the general rules that are followed when we come to the auction or the issuance of certain instruments or securities on the debt market. The investors, first of all, must be registered on the CSD account. That is the number one step you must take. And this is absolutely free of charge. It depends maybe on your banker or your primary dealer, but it's supposed to be an absolutely free a free service for you. And of course, if you want to invest in the debt market, you open the Central Securities Depository because you cannot store securities in space. You have to put them on an account, and this account is the Central Securities Depository, just like the way you have a bank account, a mobile money account, and so many others. Now, all the bids must be delivered through a primary dealer bank. All the bids, if you are a bidder, and that is if you're coming into the buying of a bond for the very first time on the primary market, you must have to go through your primary dealer, or you go through a commercial bank who appoints commercial bank which appoints the primary dealer. And I said we have 8 of these primary dealers, and I've mentioned them before. And after doing this, of course, delivering the bids through the primary dealer, a bidder cannot be both competitive and non-competitive in a single tenor of a government security. So you cannot have a security that is in the competitive bids and also another in the non-competitive. You must choose one. Either you're a competitive bidder or you are a non-competitive. And as I said, for competitive bidders, you're supposed to have above 200 million shillings. Now, the bid volumes. Some people usually ask me this question, and I want to answer it right now. The bids, what is the minimum amount of money I can have on a bid if I want to buy a treasury bond or a treasury bill? Well, it is 100,000 Ugandan shillings. That's the minimum amount at which you can lend to government. Now, the bids must also be multiples of 100,000, meaning there are no in-betweens like 115, 120, 117. No, it is either 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000, 400, and so on. It's in the units of 100,000. Now, Bank of Uganda has no limit to the high volumes, and of course dominance by single investor. So you don't have, if it is a bill of 100 billion and you have the money, it is absolutely fine to take the entire bill by yourself. It is up to you. There are no limits for the amount of the money that a single bidder can come into the market with. Now, the bid volumes ranging from 100,000 and 200,000 are 200 million are classified as non-competitive, as mentioned, and those from 200 million and 100,000 are classified as competitive. Now, for the non-competitive, when we come to the bid pricing, the non-competitive bids are not priced, whereas when you look at the competitive bids, they must be priced, and that the price with prices expressed per 100 shillings in or in yields and correct to 3 decimal places. And so those are some of the listing or the rules for you to actually be able to participate in the debt market here in Uganda and be able to benefit from this. What are some? Of course, they also list some of the benefits or advantages for trading with the Bank of Uganda in these securities. Number one, they offer a competitive rate of return. These instruments or securities come at a return, and this return is what attracts most investors. It's also known as the coupon rate. This rate determined, of course, by the investors themselves, the competitive bidders, is what the government is going to pay you back. It is the cost of lending government. So if it is, at the moment, for example, we have a 9.3% treasury bill that was issued on the 7th of September. What does this mean? If I lend government 100,000 after exactly 3 months, because this is a short-term instrument, 182 days, you will have your money back of the 100,000 plus 9,300, because that is the rate of return, 9.3%. The other, of course, the longer-term instruments, the treasury bonds, they have an annual rate, which annual rate comes in every 6 months. Half of it comes in 6 months, and the other half comes in the next 6 months to make a year. So if it is a rate of return of 20% and you're lending government 1 million shillings, you should expect 100,000 at the end of 6 months and another 100,000 at the end of the next 6 months to make a total of 200,000, which is your return. Now, when you look at the other advantage, we have they are risk-free instruments, as I mentioned already. Government will not default. Definitely government will pay back. They are also a saving mechanism, like we are all about saving here on the show. They encourage you to save, because this money is kept with government, but it's going to be given back to you anyway. So you're putting this money aside for future use, for emergencies, and for any unexpected things, or for goals that you might have. That is your financial goals as an individual, buying a new car, of course, getting a new home, and so on and so forth. They are also liquid, very liquid, and can easily be sold in the secondary market. So you have a primary market, yes, and this is also something we want to also make very, very clear. The markets we mentioned before were primary markets, where we have Bank of Uganda interacting with primary dealers and other individuals probably that are bidding or going for the auctions directly. But after this primary market, we move on to the secondary market, where we have the transfer of these instruments from one investor to another, or from the investors to the public. And this secondary market is also listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. So you can visit the website at www.use.org, and you will find, of course, listings, and then you look for debt instruments. These debt instruments include the treasury bills, short-term loans to government, the treasury bonds for the long term, as well as the corporate bonds for the classified companies that are listed there on the Uganda Stock Exchange. All this is secondary market activity. And it also answers the question that many of you usually ask, is that if it is a 10-year bond and in the 5th year of holding the bond, I want to get back my money. Well, you go back and list on the secondary market and find someone else, of course, to take over the bond. That means, of course, from that day onwards, you will not be able to get that interest coming in, but have back your initial deposit after accruing the interest until the period of selling of that particular instrument. Now, they can also be pledged as collateral for borrowing. If you have a treasury bond or a treasury bill, good news. You can use it as collateral for you to get a mortgage loan, to get a home loan, or for you to actually be able to get a loan for doing your business, any other kind of loan. You can use these financial instruments as collateral. So there's a lot of good stuff about the debt markets. I only implore you to take chances and get to invest. As I've already mentioned, saving is very important, but investment is much more important. And that's it from the debt instruments. As I said, you can visit the website of the USE at www.use.org for more information on how you can participate in the debt market here in Uganda. Now, moving ahead to the stock markets yesterday. Stock markets open at exactly 9 a.m. here in Uganda and close at 1 p.m. And as I speak, of course, trading is going on and stockbrokers are doing their best to get some stock for their clients. But when you look at the stock exchange yesterday, there was slightly a little decline in performance. However, we had more companies participate in the trades of the day, after the day ended with 6 participants out of the 18 listed companies. Those are the people that participated in the trading on the Uganda Stock Exchange yesterday. The day ended with 2 gainers and 6 losers on the market, with the 2 gainers being KCB Group at a 1.02% appreciation in price, and Nation Media Group at a 0.56% appreciation. And on the other hand, Cipla Quality Chemical Industries lost by the 7.14%, which was the biggest decline for the day, at exactly closing the day with the price of 65 shillings, Ugandan shillings, on the stock exchange there, followed by Centum Investments. When you look at Cipla, but they have been quite, they have tried to maintain the 70 shillings. However, yesterday they could not stand the, of course, decline, and they declined to 65 after losing 5 shillings from 70 shillings yesterday. And Centum Investments Company also dropped 1.47%, whereas East African Breweries Limited dropped 1.41%. and Equity Bank dropped 0.74%. Uganda Clays recorded the highest volume of over 461,500 traded shares, followed by Stanbic Bank Uganda at 336,000 shares, and that is for the biggest volume, second biggest volume, and Bank of Baroda at 213,800 shares, whereas MTN at 83,220 shares per trading session yesterday. Those are some of the players who actually were active on the stock markets yesterday. Remember, we have 18 companies, 10 of these are domestically listed, and 8 of them are cross-listed from Nairobi. And so you can participate in the trades here on the Uganda Stock Exchange by simply opening an SCD account. You can use, maybe go through your stockbroker. We have 4 stockbrokers, 5 of them actually at the moment: Cheaper Technologies, SBG Securities Uganda. You also have Crested Capital, as well as UAP Old Mutual and Dyer and Blair Investments. These are some of the stockbrokers you can approach. Because as the debt instruments, you must have an account, and in this case, it is a Securities Central Depository account there for you to buy some of these shares. The market ended in negatives yesterday, and however, we see that the exchange did not, the all share index did not have any change, closing at exactly the same mark as it opened, 1,247.17, representing a 1-week loss of 2.15% and a 4-week loss of 7.21% on the Uganda Stock Exchange. That is information regarding the Uganda Securities Exchange and how you can be able to participate. We take a quick breather. We return with a deeper analysis and cross over also to Nairobi and have a look at their market. Stay with us.